So if we're looking at this like a birth chart, like we're looking at the spring equinox is like setting the tone for all of spring. What we have going on here is we have the rising in Capricorn, 29th degree of Capricorn. And if you guys aren't, aware, we just went through, and I'm sure most of you are, we just went through a time period last year where we had all this Capricorn energy. It was like really uncomfortable. Of course, like what we were going through as a society, as a collective, was really uncomfortable. And Pluto is conjunct, which means right next to the rising for the spring. So that's showcasing and showing us that there's work to do. There's still going to be more internal work that we're going to be doing this spring. And Scorpio is at the midheaven. And when Scorpio is at the midheaven, it's saying we have to use our magic to work through this. We have to get into that metaphysical, that way of doing things that is kind of more, I don't want to say secretive, but Scorpio is like behind the scenes, like in our own homes. So it's really highlighting that even if we're out in the world, we need to be able to use our magic. We need to be able to use our metaphysical skills. So many people are realizing through last year, are realizing that like, wow, I really am sensitive to other people. I just didn't even have the opportunity to know that because I was just pushing so hard and around people all the time. And now, like, I've had this experience where I go out to do something and I have to be around people and I'm like, oh, I'm so exhausted, which I know some of us have been working this whole way through. And so it's different perspective. But for me, I've been doing just mostly online stuff. And so then when I do go out and do something, it's like so exhausting. And so what this chart is saying is like, we have to continue working our energetic tools, anything that we've learned in this last year. And we want to move forward in the world this spring in a very way of protecting our boundaries and protecting our energetic fields. If we're out in the world more, if we're around friends more, we still want to have those energetic boundaries intact. And we have the IC point, which is the lowest point on the chart. It's the point where we're like the grounding, the earth below us kind of energy. And that's in Taurus, and it's conjunct Black Moon Lilith, which means that for many of us, there is this need to honor within ourselves our own ways of stepping away from the crowd, of doing things our own way. I have a whole video on Black Moon Lilith. If you're interested, message me and I can send it to you. But Black Moon Lilith is the ride or die bitch. I always say she is the fierce feminine that will not back down. And this is for men and women, right? No matter what your gender is, we have this feminine influence that's just like, well, fuck that. I'm going to do it my way. And so her being at the lowest part in the chart for the spring equinox in an earth sign, with the rising in an earth sign as well, is really showing us caring for our physical bodies, caring for our energy levels with that Scorpio. And so being out in nature, eating well, exercising, those things are all going to be really important for the spring. We also still do have a lot of Pisces energy. We have Mercury in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, and for the spring equinox chart, Venus in Pisces conjunct the sun. So this element of the energy work, the clearing out, like it's still happening, even though we have this fire and this capability to burn it away with the sun newly in Aries. And it's really highlighting again the resources deep within us that we need to tap into this whole springtime. And because the sun, Venus, Neptune, Chiron, and Ceres are all in the second house. And the second house is about our personal resources, our personal finances, but also our energy levels. Because money, I believe, is just energy. So how well are we holding our energy? How well are we holding ourselves? And noticing the areas where we allow people to come in and mess with our vibe, where we allow people to come in and shake things up for us when we don't need to go there. Chiron and Ceres, both in Aries, conjunct each other, highlight this, because Ceres is the mother energy. And so it's where we need to mother ourselves and heal ourselves from any wounds of the past. And in Aries, it has to do with our identity. So these core identity wounds that we've had since childhood, we can call upon our like inner resources, our inner mothering to heal those. And that's really highlighted for this springtime. We also have, in the first house, we have Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius in the first house. And so this is really saying, again, I talked about Saturn and Jupiter in the beginning, well, more Saturn, how it's a social planet. So there is these social influences in the chart, which is hopeful for me, that we're going to be socializing a little bit more, that we're going to be creating form and creating this discipline around who we are, but also who we're being with each other. And it highlights less polarity, because we've experienced a lot of polarity and contrast in the last year. And so in the first house, Aquarius is new ways of doing societal things, but expansion in that. And so places like Clubhouse, but also, you know, being out in the world, because Aquarius is very future oriented and very community based. So that's a positive thing to see, that there will be more of that societal influence in our lives. And then finally, a really awesome thing is the moon and the north node are conjunct in the 5th house. And this is showing us that our emotions are leading us. We need to pay attention to our emotions. We need to really get clear about how we're feeling about things, because it wants to lead us. And there's definitely this collective pull towards the Dharma, which is our collective work together, why we're all here, why we're in community together, our society, that kind of thing. And so the North Node conjunct the moon shows us that, first of all, we need to be clear about how we're feeling. And that's one thing that in our society, typically in the past, we have learned how to numb ourselves from. And so this coming back online to how we can use our emotions to create when it's in a positive place, because the 5th house is creations. It also highlights our romantic relationships. It highlights anything we're passionate about. It also highlights how we're raising our children, that kind of thing. So it's like this passion, this hobby, this leisure energy, this playful energy. So we want to encourage that creative insight, that creative flow, doing the things that really make you feel uplifted and happy, any leisure activities that you have, or people that just invite that play with you, you want to be aware of. And then also looking at, this does also show like looking at what relationships are weighing you down emotionally and releasing those if they're not in alignment with your future. And so there's this very kind of peek into our future this spring that we want to be aware of, because where we're going is very different than where we've been. And this is highlighted with Mars in the 4th house in Gemini. We have 3 planets in Gemini here, 2 in the 5th house, 1 in the 4th house, and this is for springtime. It's really highlighting where we need to let go of the past, where we need to move into this new way of being in our bodies, with ourselves first, so that we can show up that way with others. And this is all happening. It's all already happening. So ways that you can embody this spring astrology and insight to help you flourish and grow is look at where your Aries, Taurus, and Gemini houses are. So if you know your rising sign, this will help. If you have your chart, it's even better. And you can look at where Aries, Taurus, and Gemini are in your chart, because those 3 are where the sun is going to be moving through for the next 3 months. So to know where they are in your chart is going to give you great insight on how to integrate this energy, where in your life it's going to be showing up, you know, what planets or placements are there. And more importantly, probably than that, is to just know that whatever work you've been doing in this last year, it's not to say that it's totally going to go away, but you want to act on the inspiration and the feeling of expansion. The things that make you feel expansive, you want to act on. And we really need to start listening to those natural, intuitive hunches that we're getting and paying less attention to what society's telling us about those hunches. So I feel like this is happening for everyone, and it's really important to just embody that expansion. Like, one thing that I love The Big Leap, if you've ever read that book, one thing that he talks about is when we're feeling anxious, it's literally just a new energy wanting to come through and trying to figure out where it can land. And so when you're feeling anxious, something you can tell yourself, a really quick thing that I like to do is place a hand on your heart, take a deep breath, and instead of feeling into the anxiety of the unknown, you can tell yourself, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm buzzing. I'm so excited. And shifting the perspective from being a negative, we think of anxiety as a negative thing, into I'm so excited. And that just naturally creates this expansion in your body, in your energy field, so that new thing can land somewhere. And so that's what I got from The Big Leap, even though he didn't say it quite that way. But that's a great book to read to kind of be in this energy, because we all are in a huge quantum leap right now. So I did mention, if you click through the link in my profile, I have my digital planner is free on my website, which I think is linked to through my Instagram. So my digital planetary planner is free. I'm also doing this weekend